Hey, Daddy, what's up, gang? Pop your shit, gang. Come on, I got some studio in here. Come here, I got something for you. I got a gift for you. Come here. Fat Daddy. Fat Daddy, you wanna know him? I love you, boy. I made it. Understand my struggle. I made it. Like, my son got 40 more years. He ain't coming home. He say, bro, when you get out there, man, pop your shit on my mama. Live every day like it's your last. And that's
What began as an ordinary winter day in Glasgow Village, St. Louis County, Missouri, would soon unravel into a nightmare no family could have imagined.
What you talking about? Nigga, I'm on this, on my mama, and I'm finna get off this. I got shit to do. On Blue.
Oh, hey there.
Listen, I want everybody, Merry Mother Christmas, you heard me? I've been gone 5 years, man. It's a blessing, man. I don't give a mother give you no gift, man. Be thankful, man, that they still here, man.
This is Jonathan Brown, a 34-year-old barber and devoted father of 3 boys. Just moments before had celebrated his son Legend's 15th birthday, surrounded by laughter, music, and hope. He was working to rebuild his life after nearly 5 years in prison, determined to be present, to make up for lost time, and to honor the second chance he'd been given. But that second chance would be violently ripped away. On that cold January afternoon, Jonathan was found dead inside his own home. The shocking truth would send ripples through the community. The person accused of taking his life was not a stranger, not a criminal outside the family, but his own son, Legend Brown. And with that revelation came questions that seemed impossible to answer. How could a boy, barely 15, turn on the man who had fought to give him a father's love? What pressures, resentments, or misunderstandings had festered during Jonathan's years behind bars? How did attempts to repair a fractured family explode into a tragedy that would leave a community shocked and searching for answers? Before we confront the moment that shattered everything, let's rewind to where it all began, because the stories that look the most ordinary often hide the darkest truths. Jonathan Brown, affectionately known as John by family and friends, was a 34-year-old father from Glasgow Village in St. Louis County, Missouri. Jonathan earned a reputation in his neighborhood as a skilled barber, a role that placed him at the heart of everyday life. But the shop wasn't just where he cut hair. It was a hub of conversation, connection, and routine, a place where people came not only for a trim, but for community. For Jonathan, barbering was more than a trade. It gave him stability, a way to provide for his family, and a sense of belonging. But like many humans with different struggles in life, he too had his own fair share. His path was marked by repeated encounters with the law. His actions ultimately led to a prison sentence that lasted nearly 5 years, a period that marked one of the most difficult chapters of his life. Between 2019 and 2025, he served time for unlawful possession of a firearm as a previously convicted felon, a charge that carried heavy sentencing guidelines and reflected the weight of his past mistakes. It all began in March 2019, when St. Louis police attempted to pull him over after witnessing his vehicle run through a stop sign. But instead of stopping, Jonathan made a decision. He chose to flee, leading officers on a high-speed chase through city streets. The pursuit would not last long. It ended in a residential neighborhood where Jonathan and another man jumped out of the vehicle and ran. But they won't go far. Officers eventually tracked him down, finding him hiding inside a nearby residence. During the chase, a witness reported seeing Jonathan drop something into a trash can. When officers searched it, they discovered a firearm, the very evidence that would seal his fate. For Jonathan, this wouldn't be his first brush with the law. Back in 2013, he'd already been convicted of resisting arrest, a history that made the 2019 charge far more serious. With his prior record, prosecutors pursued the case aggressively. The sentencing guidelines placed him at 70 to 80 months, and ultimately, Jonathan served approximately 4 years and 10 months behind bars. His time in prison reflected not only the consequences of his choices, but also the reality of how quickly a single decision, running from police, Discarding a weapon could alter the course of a life. Yet while Jonathan was serving his time, life outside those prison walls did not pause. His children continued to grow, facing milestones and challenges without his presence. Most affected was his son, 15-year-old Legend, who entered some of the most formative years of his adolescence without the guidance, support, or stability of a father figure. Legend was only around 9 years old when his father was locked away, and by the time Jonathan was released in 2025, Legend was already 10. Those 5 years had been formative, and without his father's guidance, Legend had begun gravitating toward dangerous influences. By the age of 13, reports linked him to an alleged armed carjacking in Berkeley, Missouri, a sign of how quickly his life was veering off course. According to police accounts, the incident unfolded on a Saturday afternoon around 3 p.m. A trio of young people targeted a 2014 Mercedes E350 parked along the 6400 block of Evergreen Boulevard. They allegedly ordered the driver out of the vehicle at gunpoint before speeding away in the stolen car. The brazen act shocked the community, underscoring how deeply youth violence had taken root. All 3 suspects were eventually apprehended, but because they were juveniles, the details of their prosecution and sentencing were not made public. What remained clear, however, was the trajectory Legend had begun to follow. Jonathan's incarceration had not only cost him his freedom, it had left his children vulnerable to the streets, where choices made in moments of recklessness carried consequences that could last a lifetime. Despite the challenges, Jonathan returned home with one clear mission. He wanted to rebuild his relationship with his sons, instill discipline, and guide Legend toward a better path. When Legend moved in with him, he saw it as a second chance, an opportunity to guide his son away from the same pitfalls that had defined his own past. He was committed to steering Legend toward a better future, determined that the boy would not walk the same troubled road he once did. Social media became a window into his progress. Jonathan frequently shared his gratitude, his journey of personal growth, and his dedication to being a present father. He celebrated milestones with Legend, posting updates about academic achievements, including his promotion to 9th grade, and shared heartfelt reflections about his pride in his son. He affectionately referred to Legend as Fat Daddy, his right hand and backbone, highlighting the deep bond he hoped to cultivate. By September 2025, things were looking good for Jonathan. He even took to social media to take a moment to reflect on the progress he had made since returning home. He shared that it had been 196 days since his release, and in that time, he had managed to secure steady work, purchase his own home, and find a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. He shared he was grateful for the chance to be present in his son's life. He expressed thanks to God for allowing him to guide Legend with the values and principles he believed were essential for navigating the world. Little did he know he would be paying a bigger life price. By August, Jonathan was already seeing signs of change in his son. Legend had been struggling academically, falling behind a grade, but Jonathan insisted he attend summer school through spring break to catch up, and true to his suggestion, his persistence paid off. When Legend earned his promotion to 9th grade, Jonathan proudly shared a photo of the certificate, his words filled with emotion and tears of joy. On December 15, 2025, Jonathan took to social media to announce it was Legend's 15th birthday. He shared his love for his children and how he would always be present for them. Not only that, Jonathan also threw a surprise birthday party for Legend. Friends and family gathered, decorations adorned the room, music played, and money was scattered in celebration. Jonathan's joy was undeniable. He was determined to create a memorable day for his son after the hardships of the previous years.
Hey, Daddy, what's up, gang? Pop your shit, gang. Come on, I got some studio in here. Come here, I got something for you. I got a gift for you. Come here. Fat Daddy. Fat Daddy, you want to know him? I'll you, boy.
Yet in that fun-filled room with so much laughter and music, there was a subtle tension. Legend didn't seem too excited. He appeared disconnected, his expression muted, his body language distant. Observers later shared that he did not engage fully with the celebration, a small but menacing detail that would become tragically significant. On Christmas Day, Jonathan shared a photo of himself with two of his sons, capturing a moment of joy as they celebrated the holiday together. It was a simple gesture, but one that reflected how much he valued being present after years of absence. By January 2026, Jonathan had marked nearly a full year of freedom. He was still in the process of rebuilding his life, balancing work, home, and fatherhood, but his determination was clear. Every step forward was part of his promise to be the kind of father his children could depend on and to live up to the second chance he had been given. Tragically, the opportunity would be short-lived, worst off in the hands of someone no one could have imagined. For a short while, it seemed Jonathan's life was finally on track, but that progress would come to a horrifying stop. On January 7, 2026, Jonathan and Legend reportedly had an argument earlier in the day, the details of which remain unclear. That evening, Jonathan went to sleep in his home on the 10,800 block of Glengarry Road, but it was in those quiet hours that the unimaginable occurred. Legend allegedly picked up a firearm, waited until his father was asleep, and shot him in his own home. At around 5 p.m., St. Louis County Police were dispatched to the 10,800 block of Glengarry Road. Officers would arrive to a chilling scene. Jonathan Brown was found lying unresponsive in his home, already pronounced dead. Crime scene investigators immediately secured the area, collected evidence, and interviewed family members to piece together the events that led to this shocking act. The investigation presented an unusual challenge. In the hours immediately following the shooting, authorities shared almost nothing with the public. No suspect was named, no motive was offered, and no arrests were made. That silence, however, did not last long. At the crime scene, detectives uncovered a critical detail. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken locks or windows, and no evidence that an outsider had been present. Everything suggested that the violence had originated from inside the home itself. With that realization, investigators quickly narrowed their scope. Their focus shifted to the people who had been in the house that evening. They carefully reconstructed their movements and examining the events leading up to the fatal gunshot. Investigators quickly turned their attention to Jonathan's relationship with his eldest son, who had been living in the house since Jonathan's release from prison earlier that year. Jonathan had been home for less than 12 months, and during that time he was working hard to re-establish himself as a father, setting rules, asserting authority, and trying to take an active role in his children's lives after years away. That adjustment, however, was far from easy. Legend, his son, had spent the critical years of early adolescence without Jonathan present. During those years, routines and household dynamics had formed in his absence, and when Jonathan returned, those patterns shifted abruptly. Detectives noted that there were no prior reports of violence between father and son, no police calls, no protective orders, no documented domestic disturbances. What existed instead was a quiet tension, unreported and unresolved, which became central to understanding what followed. On the afternoon of January 7, 2026, Jonathan had gone to sleep inside his home. Sometime after, he was shot. There were no signs of a struggle, no evidence of an argument, and no indication of a confrontation escalating in real time. Investigators allege the shooting occurred while Jonathan was asleep, a detail that reframed the case entirely. This was not a spontaneous act in the heat of conflict, nor a reaction to an immediate threat. It was carried out during a moment of vulnerability. Ballistics and scene analysis confirmed the weapon had been fired from inside the residence. The position of Jonathan's body and the absence of defensive injuries supported the conclusion that he had no chance to respond. Once investigators reached that determination, the case advanced rapidly. The alleged perpetrator was Jonathan's own son, Legend, who had recently turned 15. Because of his age, much of the legal process would unfold behind closed doors in family court, and authorities were careful to follow juvenile procedures while pursuing justice. Detectives had to ensure that the evidence was airtight, including the firearm used, ballistics reports, and witness statements to support the serious charges of second-degree murder and armed criminal action. Right at that moment, law enforcement also had to carefully navigate the sensitive family dynamics. Interviewing a minor about such a grave crime required specialized officers trained in juvenile questioning. They had to establish not only what happened, but also the circumstances that led to the incident, all while ensuring the rights of the suspect were protected and the details were accurately documented. Meanwhile, the community began piecing together the story through media reports and social media posts. Jonathan's efforts to rebuild his life and reconnect with legend had been public, with photos, updates, and reflections shared online. Investigators noted these posts as part of the background context, revealing both the father's dedication and the son's gradual disconnect, which may have contributed to the underlying tension. As the investigation progressed, authorities reviewed footage, examined the crime scene, and gathered forensic evidence. It was determined that the shooting was deliberate and occurred while Jonathan was asleep, which aligned with statements provided by neighbors and initial reports from emergency responders. Every detail of the evidence supported the conclusion that this was a calculated act, not a moment of impulsive anger. Soon enough, the next critical development came. On January 11, 2026, police announced the arrest of 15-year-old Legend Brown. He was charged with second-degree murder and armed criminal action and remanded to the custody of St. Louis County Family Court. Authorities emphasized that, due to his status as a juvenile, many of the details of the case would remain confidential, but the seriousness of the charges reflected the seriousness of the crime. The crime itself was both calculated and devastating. A young man, once the object of his father's care and guidance, had turned on the man who had spent years trying to restore their relationship. The shocking nature of a son killing his father so deliberately in his own home stunned the family, community, and local authorities alike. What should have been a moment of love and reconnection had become an irreversible tragedy. And just when it seemed the story couldn't get darker, the details of the family dynamic revealed layers of complexity. Jonathan had spent years trying to repair the gap caused by his time in prison. Legend had previously been involved in criminal activity and had been exposed to street influences in his father's absence. The contrast between Jonathan's dedication to rebuilding and Legend's violent actions highlighted the fragility of trust and the unpredictable nature of trauma and disconnection in families affected by incarceration. The community's shock was compounded by the circumstances of the murder. A home, a family, and a father's love were violated in the most intimate and personal way. Social media posts and video footage of the birthday party showing Legend's distant demeanor became poignant indicators of underlying tension, capturing a moment of normalcy that, in hindsight, foreshadowed a tragedy nobody could have anticipated.
Hours ago, police announced they arrested a teenager in connection to a deadly shooting in Glasgow Village. This happened on Glengarry Road just before 5 last Wednesday. St. Louis County Police say they found a man dead in a home. A 15-year-old suspect is now facing second-degree murder charges in family court.
And just when the community thought the story might pause with the arrest, questions began circulating about what could have led a child to turn on his father in such a fatal way. Investigators looked into previous incidents, including Legend's alleged involvement in an armed carjacking at age 13, and considered the impact of Jonathan's years in prison, during which Legend had been growing up without his father's guidance. These insights helped explain some of the underlying context, though nothing could justify the violence. Police also had to examine the sequence of events leading up to the shooting. The argument Jonathan and Legend reportedly had earlier that day became a focal point for understanding motive, timing, and premeditation. Investigators considered behavioral indicators, familial patterns, and the son's recent interactions with his father. Every aspect of the investigation aimed to establish a clear picture of the night's events for the family court proceedings. Meanwhile, authorities coordinated with social workers and juvenile specialists to ensure that the legal process took into account both the public safety concerns and the rehabilitation needs of a minor. The goal was to balance accountability with the unique considerations of handling serious crimes committed by juveniles. And ever since then, the arrest set the stage for a deeper examination of family dynamics, juvenile accountability, and community safety. While Legend was in custody, police continued to gather evidence, speak with witnesses, and document every aspect of the case. The community watched closely, aware that the tragic loss of Jonathan Brown was now entwined with the challenges of juvenile justice and the broader implications for parenting, rehabilitation, and prevention. After Legend Brown's arrest, the focus shifted to the family and community left grappling with the aftermath. Jonathan Brown's death spread across St. Louis, leaving his children and those around him stunned and heartbroken. Crystal clear images and social media posts that once highlighted a father rebuilding his life now served as haunting reminders of the tragedy. For Jonathan's family, the loss was devastating. His dedication to his children, especially to rebuilding a relationship with Legend after years in prison, made the circumstances even more painful. Friends described Jonathan as a loving father, a devoted son, and a man determined to turn his life around. His efforts to reconnect with Legend, to provide guidance and discipline, and to celebrate milestones like birthdays and school achievements made the violence all the more incomprehensible. The community reacted with a mix of grief, confusion, and reflection. Neighbors recalled Jonathan's presence in the neighborhood, his work as a barber, and his attempts to mentor youth and maintain a strong family unit. Local residents struggled to reconcile the idea that a child could commit such a violent act against his own father, sparking conversations about juvenile crime, parenting, and the long-term impact of incarceration on families. Funeral arrangements became a time for mourning, remembrance, and reflection. Friends and family gathered to honor Jonathan's life, celebrate his dedication to his children, and confront the emotional weight of the tragedy. His contributions as a father, barber, and community member were remembered alongside the devastating circumstances of his passing. Meanwhile, social media and public discussions highlighted the complexities of the case. Many debated the factors that may have contributed to Legend's actions, from the absence of his father during critical years to prior exposure to criminal activity. Others reflected on the warning signs in Legend's behavior, including his detachment during birthday celebrations and his previous involvement in a carjacking at age 13. These conversations underscored the importance of awareness, intervention, and understanding in preventing such tragedies. This case has served as both a cautionary tale and a call to action. Families were reminded of the importance of maintaining communication, monitoring behavioral changes, and providing guidance to youth, especially during formative years. Community programs, mentorship, and support systems for at-risk youth gained renewed focus as residents reflected on what might have prevented the violence. Finally, the story concluded with a reminder for viewers. Tragic events like this highlight the fragility of life and the consequences of unaddressed familial and societal pressures. If you notice warning signs in your family or community, reach out to authorities or support services. Early intervention, awareness, and compassion can save lives. Jonathan Brown's legacy lives on through his children, the memories shared by family and friends, and the lessons the community has taken from this tragic event. While the legal process continues for Legend in juvenile court, the human impact of this crime resonates deeply, serving as a reminder of the importance of vigilance, communication, and care within families and neighborhoods. Stay alert, protect your loved ones, and honor those lost by taking action where you can. What do you think about it? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.